Since our last update yesterday afternoon, the situation in the two provinces of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng is gradually but firmly returning to normality. Overnight, to the last 3 hours, no new incidences were reported in Gauteng. Therefore, the incidences remained at 58 since the violence. Additional 6 deaths were reported, and cumulative the deaths have now become 32 in Gauteng. 137 additional arrests were made, and then the cumulative arrests are 862 in Gauteng. And South African National Defence Force deployment supporting the SAPS and Metro Police remains in Gauteng in the potential hotspots. And I must also clarify that there are deployments across the country because we don't want to find people who have been instigating the violence taking advantage of the other provinces. So the deployments are also in other provinces. In KwaZulu-Natal, overnight reported cases 1,488. Additional 89 deaths were reported. Cumulative number of deaths in KwaZulu-Natal, it's 180. An additional 214 arrests were made, which makes the cumulative arrest total to 1,692. And law enforcement agencies continue to closely monitor the situation in that province, which is stable but fairly tense in some areas. Furthermore, community structures in the identified areas have been meeting with the SAPS officials on a daily basis to assess the situation and go through plans for the day to protect their communities. We want to also address matters of ammunition, explosives, and hazardous materials that have been discovered. Several crime scenes related to the discovery of ammunition, explosives, and hazardous materials had to be attended to in line with the established protocol that dictates that the SAPS explosive unit determine the safety of officers before the officers may conduct a seizure of such materials. This caused a delay in the transportation of boxes of 500 live ammunition rounds that were discovered after law enforcement officers dispersed a large group of looters during the evening of 14th July 2021 in Mobeni, which is the area covering Leicester, Grimsby, and South Coast Road Triangle. Other recorded recoveries of ammunition in KwaZulu-Natal are as follows. On the 14th of July, 2 suspects aged 16 and 23 were arrested at Mobeni after they were found in possession of unlicensed firearm and 4,000 rounds of ammunition. The suspects were charged for possession of an illegal firearm, possession of rounds of ammunition, and possession of suspected stolen material. On the 15th of July, on Leicester Road in Mobeni, 1,050 cartridge boxes were found abandoned. On the same day, on Leicester Road, near the Testic factory, 900 boxed cartridges were found abandoned. A number of people were also found trying to siphon fuel from underground tanks at a petroleum service station in Pinetown in Durban. And hazardous items, which were targeted by looters, have proved to be related to the high number of fatalities, during which 7 multiple bodies were discovered at a macro store yesterday morning in Pietermaritzburg in KwaZulu-Natal. On the work that we have been noticing of recoveries of stolen goods, recovery operations of stolen items are underway as the police continue to receive tip-offs from concerned residents about those who were involved in the looting of shopping malls and stores. Law enforcement officers on the ground have received strict instructions to adhere to the legal principles governing search and seizure. We are grateful to the majority law-abiding citizens for the scores of stolen property that law enforcement officers are recovering daily. The NetJoins would like to remind social media users not to share and distribute messages inciting violence and calling for certain areas to be shut down. Anyone distributing these messages will face criminal charges of inciting violence. For example, during the early hours of this morning, the police in Gauteng's West Rand arrested a community leader allegedly responsible for the recording and distribution of a voice note calling for public violence in the area. The voice note was distributed among the community members yesterday on the 15th of July 2021. Reopening of the major economic corridors in line with government's commitment to ensure that major economic corridors and routes which are used to transport supplies from KwaZulu-Natal to various parts of the country are opened. We wish to confirm the reopening of both the N2 and the N3 highways and the transportation of key foodstuffs, medical supplies, and fuel to all parts of the country has commenced, and therefore the reports of food shortages and fuel will be abated. SANRAL is repairing the damaged parts of the highway in Moy River and have removed barriers on the stretch of the N3, but the traffic is flowing along the N3. Government has also engaged key role players in economic cluster to find ways of rebuilding the economy, the factories that have been damaged, reopen businesses and minimize the loss of jobs. We are working on the immediate plan for ensuring economic recovery and restoring the confidence of our people, our industries, and our investors. The Department of Trade and Industry and Competition has set up an email address which is ioc@thedtic.gov.za, where companies can report potential, imminent, and actual looting taking place at their areas of or establishments, so that it can be rerouted to the net joints or ProfJoc as soon as possible. In conclusion, we want to reiterate the following. Let's stay true to the spirit of our Constitution, and let's remember the legacy of our country's heroes in shaping the Constitution. That government will not hesitate to arrest, prosecute those who perpetrate unlawful actions, and will ensure that they face the full might of the law. And appreciate the continued effort of all South Africans to protect their country and to rebuild their country. And we want to congratulate the national group, the 35 plus, the people of Let's Do Coffee, for exceeding 1 million registrations for the vaccination just in 24 hours of reopening. And we want to confirm that some provinces have also commenced vaccinating the 35 plus group. That is the national group we remain very proud of. We thank you. Yesterday there were questions that were sent earlier, so that we could then consolidate and allow time for more questions to be asked. And majority of the questions were asking the same thing, so we consolidated those that were related, and therefore the number is reduced. So we'll start with those questions, and then we'll take the hands, and then we'll take a few from the WhatsApp groups, because then we would have taken 3 rounds of questions. The first question was, please provide information on the arrest of the alleged instigator. Where and when and how was the person arrested? Has the person appeared in court yet? If so, where and when? And please provide information on what happened in court, whether the court has been postponed, bail, charges, and who's the alleged instigator. And can the presidency or NPA please provide us with the charge sheet? Has any other alleged instigators been arrested? And when and where will they appear in court, and who are they? As I've indicated yesterday, we cannot announce the name of the person who has been arrested, because that person has not yet been charged or appeared before the court of law. It's only when that person has been arrested, that has been charged and appeared in the court of law, that the name will be available, because that person will have appeared in court. Secondly, the charge sheet, you'll get it in court when the prosecution does their part. And the other related questions that are being asked of when and how, we cannot explain those details, because it will jeopardize the further investigations that are underway for the arrest of the remaining instigators. The second question is, or the other question of when will they appear? When they appear, we will announce that they are appearing, so that South Africans can go and see for themselves or watch the court proceedings. And members of the media, I'm sure they will be interested when that court appearance takes place. They will be able to follow. But we cannot, before then, we cannot announce any other thing in that detail. And we're pleading that that question, if it comes again, we'll be allowed not to answer it until such person or such persons have appeared in court. The second question was, this morning the president said intelligence services and police have identified a number of instigators. So is the number now higher than 12? Why was it possible for instigation on political grounds not better preempted as a risk to national security before last Wednesday. The number of instigators, the police are still chasing the 11, but they are investigating further number if it's possible, and that whether the number has gone higher, it will be confirmed when the police have finalized their own investigations. And then on Tuesday, the ministers for state security and the minister of police clarified their speed at which they responded when they became aware of the instigation on the matter. The other question was, we understand one of the alleged instigators of the violence has been arrested and more to come. Will the list include the Zuma twins as well as people like media personality Ngizwe Mkhunu, who were quite open with their incitement? Again, we will not comment because it will jeopardize the police investigations. The fourth question, the individuals that's not part of the 12, was the individual arrested in the West Rand not part of the 12? How was this person tracked and arrested? Which departments are leading this investigation? The person who has been arrested has not yet been charged, and when that person has been charged, you will know the details that relate to them. In addition, I cannot confirm or comment on whether the arrested alleged perpetrator is part of the 12 names. Which evidence and proof does government have to show that there was instigation? Again, if we comment on that question, it will jeopardize the investigation. But all South Africans can realize that this thing was planned, it was well executed. There are live rounds of ammunition that are being found, there are explosives that have been found, which shows a coordination. And if you were following social media, those things were being posted that this will happen, and it happened. But we cannot give you the other evidence that we have that the police will use in their cases and further investigations. Does the government consider the situation as fully stabilized now? Yes, it is fully stabilized. That's the reason why the major routes of the N3 and N1 and N2 have been reopened. That's why the fuel supply, food supplies, and medical supplies are moving, both from the ports and every part around KZN and also into Gauteng. Another question is, police have said that only 2,500 SANDF members have been deployed, but the defense minister has spoken about 25,000 members. What is the real number? So that we don't confuse ourselves. On Tuesday, when we came here, the initial plan was to deploy 2,500 because the soldiers were supposed to guard the national key points only. But because the situation on the ground changed, there was a need to increase the number, and the number was increased to 25,000 under the command of the Commander-in-Chief of the Republic, His Excellency President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. That's the number the Minister of Defense has announced. The other question is, where is the government planning to secure funding to support the deployment, and whether government view this as domestic terrorism? We have not viewed this as domestic terrorism. We have viewed this as an attempt on economic sabotage and political instigation, and which is backed by criminality. And the budget for deployment of the soldiers has to be found in line with the disaster management state that we are in, and the government will prioritize the safety and stability of the Republic and make sure the South African citizens feel comfortable and secure in their own homes, in their own country, at their places of work. How many police officers have been arrested or found with goods, looted goods? Is 2, and I'm not going to give further details on them until they are charged. In 2015, government came up with new legislation which was meant to help prosecute those who did damage to infrastructure in public protest. The Criminal Matters Amendment Act of 2015 was meant to ensure that there are stricter conditions for granting of bail in respect of essential infrastructure-related offences. It was also meant to ensure stricter sentences. The 2015 amendment means that anyone who intentionally tampers with, damages, or destroys essential infrastructure or colludes with or assists another person to do that can be jailed for up to 30 years. Are any of those arrested going to face the charges in line of this legislation? It will be determined on a case-by-case basis and on the balance of the evidence that is at hand for the police and from the police to the prosecuting agency. We want to also extend to South Africans the comfort that you can be rest assured that our military has the capability to defend the sovereignty and integrity of this country, whether we're threatened internally or externally. When they're needed internally, they will deploy and get the situation calmly into stability in supporting our South African police services. Within 48 hours, they've gotten the situation fully under control to show the capability that we have within our military and our country, that our country is safe and we cannot be threatened.